I see a lot of overuse injuries. So the classical case would be, is I don't just treat elite athletes, I also treat members of the general public. Mm-hmm. And the classical patient would be a middle-aged female who comes in with a stress fracture. Oh, so tell me about your activity. How often are you doing it? How far are you going? Okay. And we get out, okay, I'm walking 15,000 steps a day, rah, you know, rah, rah, rah. Mm. And then the kicker, why? And sometimes they just look at me because they know well that I know why. But there's often this degree of awkwardness about admitting it. It's obviously for weight control. Why else does anybody exercise them into the ground while starving their body of nutrients so much that they develop stress fractures? If you're not an elite athlete training for a competition, why, you know, what need does, the average middle-aged female have for exercise to this degree? Except if that her only understanding of weight gain and weight loss is the calories in, calories out hypothesis. We just have to burn all of this off. And usually that then opens up and I say, well, you've got a stress fracture, so you're going to have to curtail the activity. And that usually puts them into a state of despondency, because it's like, how on earth else am I going to be able to lose this weight? You don't understand. If I don't walk for 6 hours a day, I'm going to keep putting on weight. This is the only possible way I've got of maintaining my current body weight. And then it's like, actually, no. Right. You can't outrun a bad diet. Doesn't matter what you do, it will always catch up to you eventually. There's another way we can do this. And you don't have to be hungry. You don't have to starve yourself to do it. And to boot, those stress fractures, which are probably contributed to by poor bone health, which can lead to osteoporosis, so on and so forth. Right. We can actually reverse osteoporosis with nutrition. So, and as an endocrinologist, you know full well about the drugs that we promote, with the bisphosphonate drugs, which actually, the way they work, so they actually impair bone turnover, which right. doesn't mean much to the general public, but to you, you know that if you have impaired bone turnover, you have bone that's vulnerable to fracture. We have these atypical fractures in the big thigh bone when people take these. In athletes who have been inappropriately given these for stress fractures, we end up basically, I've seen it end careers because they can never get over, because it stays in the bones. It stays there for at least 10 years.
Years and years.
Bone. It's just an awful drug. And then we have other drugs which have side effects. And this is our standard treatment for osteoporosis, and we can reverse it. Well, so let me tell you about this study. So it was from 2002. It was by a couple of researchers, Dawson and Hughes. So they looked at a population over the age of 65, which to you says, well, that's got and half of them were females. And you're saying postmenopausal females, you've got no hope. We can't fix your bones. So they gave them calcium citrate and vitamin D as a supplement, blinded, randomized.
Right.
And they monitored their bone density with DEXA scanning. So pretty much gold standard. And then they got intelligent. They did it quick. They said, we're going to stratify the study population by protein intake. So they put the study population into tertiles based on how much protein they were eating, lowest, middle, and highest. And they found that as assessed by DEXA scanning, over the course of 3 years, those participants having the highest protein intake with the vitamin D and calcium reversed their osteoporosis. Let's have a look at what bone is. So they're all necessary, because everybody thinks, okay, bone's made of calcium. You know what? Bone's actually more made of protein. Protein is the scaffolding upon which the calcium and other minerals can be inserted. And vitamin D just helps your body absorb calcium. So we sort of, we use vitamin D and calcium interchangeably insofar as this goes. So let's think, what happens if you have low calcium levels in your blood? Your body's going to go, well, I'm going to break down the bone. I have to just break down the protein to get to the calcium, to put a little bit of calcium in the circulation, because we know that without enough calcium in the circulation, you can get problems. And then if you put a lot of calcium into the system, you reduce the body's need to break down bone. And that's what we've found over many, many years. If you give people calcium, you can slow down or, put a pause on the degradation of bone. But you can't make new bone because you're missing the protein.